If you still can't fall asleep, then welcome to Sound from the Darkness. Night 6. Returning Souls. It is already summer, the weather is hotter, but it is also ideal for chatting and listening to stories. I was wondering what my friend would talk about today, so I brewed 2 cups of tea early. After waiting a long time without seeing him, I was about to go look for him when I discovered he still hadn't come in, and we almost bumped into each other. "Why the rush?" my friend scolded. "I went to fetch something. This thing is very precious. If you break it, you'll be to blame." "What's that?" "So valuable." I looked curiously at his hands and saw a row of black objects, egg-sized, smooth like agate. They were truly beautiful. I couldn't help reaching out to touch them, but he dodged nimbly. "First listen to the origin of this, then you won't be so eager to touch it," he said with a mysterious smile. "All right, go on." I sat down happily and listened while drinking tea. Last Christmas, I was resting alone in Shanghai. Suddenly, I received a letter, not an email. And the strangest thing was, the sender's name sent a chill through me. Because the signature, Xie Yi-Da, clearly belonged to a friend of mine who had died a few years earlier. Speaking of Xie Yi-Da, I have to explain. He was an archaeologist who lived off his talents note. I mean, living off, as in leaning on a mountain, not taking an exam. He made a living trading cultural relics. Though we were friends, we weren't that close. We only met a few times. I always disliked people like that, but he always came up with something that piqued my curiosity, so I met him a few times. The last time I saw him dead was, in fact, the time I had met him. His death could be considered an accident, or the god's punishment, because he often sold Buddhist artifacts. He accidentally fell to his death while digging up a Buddha head. Not only was I there, but 3 of his friends were there too. We hurried to bury him and hand him over to his wife. Strangely, the widow didn't seem sad. She was so determined to save her husband that we all thought she was simply overcome with grief. What about the letter? What did it say? Why the hurry? The letter was indeed written by Xie Yi-Da. I couldn't mistake his handwriting. I've always had a knack for remembering people's features. Even if I've only met them once, if I really want to remember, I can spot what's unique about them. Xie's handwriting is like that. These days it's hard to find anyone who writes letters, especially with a brush. The main content of the letter was that he had encountered a miracle and urged us not to be afraid. He said he also sent letters to the others and hoped we would come to his house in a small town in Gansu for a gathering. I no longer remembered the others' contact info, but I was very interested in the letter. So I packed, went to the small town, and followed the address to Xie's house. What I didn't expect was that this guy lived in an extremely luxurious villa. Though in the suburbs, such a villa must have been expensive. A figure who looked like a servant quickly greeted me and told me to wait in the parlor. Inside, I was even more astonished. It was filled with the finest works of art from many eras. There were paintings like Wu Daoxi's eating children, Zhang Ziduan's along the river during the Qingming festival, and Lu Gongquan's mysterious pagoda, along with many inscriptions and calligraphy, as well as porcelain from Ming and Qing imperial kilns. These fakes looked incredibly real, and I thought they would fetch high prices. I knew you'd come. Just as I was admiring the art, I heard a familiar voice. Although I had prepared myself, I still started when I suddenly saw, before me, a man who had died a few years earlier walking toward me cheerfully and greeting me. Xie Yi-Da was no longer the antique dealer I had known. He wore a suit and tie, gold-rimmed glasses, his hair slicked back like a bulb in the dim room. Only the rosy cheeks were the same. "I knew you'd come," he repeated, excited. I frowned. "Stop repeating yourself. I can hear you." "Oh, sorry, I'm nervous." Imagine a dead man meeting an old friend. "You think I can hold it in?" He came closer. I also saw a deep dent on the left side of his head. That was definitely where he fell. I reached out to shake his hand. Nothing special, just like a normal person. His palm was even harder than usual. "Tell me what's going on." "You're very busy and don't want to see me," I said, half joking. Xie's expression grew a little unnatural, the corner of his mouth twitching, but he quickly returned to normal. "You're still as stubborn as ever. Since you're blunt, I won't hide it. Let's talk upstairs." He led me to his study. If the art in the hall was fake, the study was a museum. I couldn't name most pieces, but I could feel their unique souls. Good antiques have souls. You must be surprised, but you did well. Those fools either were too scared to come or too stupid to believe. Only you came. Good thing I didn't make a mistake. Xie sat on the sofa looking at me with confidence. Frankly, I hated that confidence. "In fact, I survived, thanks to my wife," he said slowly, with a trace of sadness. "Of course, without that legendary treasure I wouldn't have survived." I looked at him, always feeling some unseen force propped up his body. "When you handed my body to my wife, she didn't bury me. Instead, she used my meager savings to freeze me. Then she went alone to find the treasure that could bring me back, a rare treasure." I asked skeptically, my mind racing like a high-speed computer. In millennia of legend, only that thing could bring people back. Revival. Incense. He and I said almost at the same time. "Impossible," I denied quickly. "It's just legend." Moreover, the revival incense recorded in history didn't really revive anyone. At best, it was a medicine to remove rot and regenerate skin, curing severe illnesses. Revival incense. Its miraculous fragrance spreads for hundreds of miles. Even corpses can be revived by its scent, was ancient exaggeration. HMPH, I thought you'd believe, with your erudition. "Turns out you're as foolish as the common lot," Xie sneered. "If it's only legend, how did I survive? Who knows? Maybe you weren't fully dead, only temporarily unconscious. Severe brain injury can easily cause breathing to stop, not rare in medical history." Xie looked at me with a cold gaze I'd only seen on corpses. "I ask you to help me, not lecture me on medicine. If you don't believe me, I'll give you proof so you stop nagging. But prepare yourself." He stood, went to the bookcase in the corner, unlocked a mechanism, and revealed a secret room. "Let's go. Don't regret it later." He stepped in. Darkness represents the unknown, and I was a bit afraid, but curiosity won. I was lucky to live, yet I did not regret it, because I obtained a treasure that exists only in legend. It was a long passage, nearly 200 meters, lit by old wall lamps. I knew that kind of rust does not form without time. The passage was dry, which surprised me because this area has heavy monsoons and it is hard to keep such depth dry. After the corridor, we entered a spacious fan-shaped room. Stone walls all around were hung with many paintings. I am no archaeologist, but I knew they predated the Tangs, because the clothing and techniques differed from the Tang's elegant fullness. Xie went to the center and lit a 7 treasure lamp. Then he began to undress. I asked in surprise what he was doing, but he said nothing, just stripped and turned around. Seeing his body, I finally understood the proof he offered. From his chest down, only the spine remained, with a few rags of flesh. His left foot had also decayed badly. This was not something a person feigning death could do. Enough. Put your clothes on. I'm nauseous. I turned and waved. When I turned back, he was dressed and neat, looking at me with a half smile, as if mocking my stupidity. What do you want me to do? Simple. I need an assistant to go to the Yin tomb, he said firmly. According to histories, revival incense first appeared under Emperor Wu of Han. The USA in the western regions offered 3 kinds of incense. They were the size of swallow eggs, black as mulberries. When burned, the sick were cured and the dead within 3 days were revived. Within 3 days, did you find your wife then? Didn't I tell you rapid freezing can extend preservation? You're right, the Yuezhi were the origin, but in this age it has long gone extinct, Xie said impatiently. I pondered the Yuezhi's geography. On modern maps, west of Lonzhou Gansu, along the Hexi corridor to Dunhuang, the states rose in the warring states, became powerful at the end of Qin and start of Han, then was driven by the Zhongnu and declined, finally absorbed by the Kong by the 5th century. If the incense originated with the Yuezhi, isn't this exactly their old land? Looking around, there was indeed an exotic flavor. But how could the Yuezhi build a Han-style tomb? And if it was ancient, could Xie open it alone? I looked at him, puzzled. He understood and explained. Do you know where this is? This is the tomb of Zhang Qian. Nonsense, Zhang Qian's tomb is in Hanzhong. Don't fool me, I snapped. I may not know much history, but I'm not a fool. I know you won't believe it, but this tomb was built by the Yuezhi for Zhang Qian. His remains are not here. But in this tomb there is something more precious than his body. You mean the revival incense? Yes, the Yuezhi used extremely precious relics as mementos to build this tomb. It means nothing in contemporary records. But for an antique fanatic like me, this is a lifelong quest. What is the Yin tomb? Revival incense is precious. The Yuezhi hid it at the center of the ancient tomb when they built it. Needless to say, a treasure that can revive the dead would attract robbers. You know the eye of a storm is calm. The incense is that eye, better called a Yin cavern. Around it are all those things, wanting to use the treasure's power to return to the world. His words stunned me. Could the incense's appearance really bring the dead back? Its fragrance once drifted to Japan, where it ignited a brutal war between the living and the dead, humans and demons. Kyoto became a ghost town. That shows its power. But doesn't it only revive those dead less than 3 days? I asked, confused. That was not pure incense. What Zhang Qian brought back wasn't stored correctly and was scorched by sun. More importantly, it was mixed with other aromatics. But even impure incense could heal dire illnesses. That's why history's recorded it. Xie continued, and I listened, fascinated. Indeed, the Heian-era, age of Abe no Saime, was a chaotic time where humans, ghosts, and spirits coexisted. Then let's go. You look a bit sturdy, I pointed at him. He smiled wryly. The incense that revived me was not pure. Though my wife gave her life to save me, I remain half man, so I must find pure, perfect incense. He looked at me, and I understood the pain of standing at the boundary of life and death. I agreed, Because I am human too, and did not want to miss a legendary treasure, even if this trip could be dangerous. Why not get more people? I asked. Numbers don't matter. 100 useless men can't beat one useful assistant, he said, glancing at me. Then he went to the wall. There was a jigsaw-like panel. He moved a few pieces. Suddenly, the floor slowly opened to reveal a round hole like a well mouth, but much larger, about 2 meters across. It looked eerie and dark. Even standing near it, a chill ran down my spine. It's not too late to regret, Xie said, seeing my hesitation. Don't provoke me. I won't change my mind. Even if I didn't want to go, killing me would be useless. But tell me how we get back up. I looked into the cave. It was puzzling. There's an electric winch. At the right time it will pull us up. Time is short. Only now is relatively safe. If we miss this point, I'll have to wait 10 years, and I can't. Xie bent to pack. I hadn't noticed he'd changed clothes and pulled out a machine beside us. On it was a large wheel and a rope tied like a climbing harness. He tossed me an outfit and a gear bag. Put it on to move easier. Minutes later, we were ready. Xie checked his watch and motioned to jump. We jumped together. The shaft wasn't deep, only about 10 meters. We slid slowly on the rope. The walls were so smooth it was hard to descend. After half an hour, we finally set foot on the floor. We switched on flashlights. Xie said he could control the winch to pull us up within 2 hours. Then it would auto-pull us. But best to avoid such places. The lower chamber was shaped like an hourglass. The bottom was even larger. The beams weren't bright, but lit a few meters. The lower part was entirely composed of dozens of neat stone walls. Each wall was carved with strange texts and images. I couldn't read the text, but the images were intelligible. The first wall seemed to show a monk meditating, but his robes didn't look Chinese. The second showed a fox staring at the monk. The monk lay on a pyre while people who looked like his disciples held torches. They seemed to be cremating him. The third showed a woman with a king, but the woman's eyes stared at a box beside the king. I asked Xie what these murals and texts said. These murals fully recount the origin of the incense. He replied while searching the ground for something without even looking. Oh, tell me, what does the first part mean? A great master attained death while meditating. Then, to obtain his relics, the famous nine-tailed fox spirit of the time transformed into a human and married the Indian king Pinjasara, the master's son, his son. A monk had a son. I was perplexed. Pinjasara was indeed the son of that illustrious man. The master in the first mural is Chandragupta, founder of the Mauryan Empire and a devout Jain, Jainism. Founded by Vardhamana in the 6th century BC, like Hinduism and Buddhism, believes in liberation of the soul, karmic retribution, and rebirth. It advocates non-violence, abstaining from killing and doing good. When he died and was cremated, he left 3 jewels. The nine-tailed fox wanted them and got the son to keep them. But he didn't expect Chandragupta's son to be too formidable and see through it, so it was expelled from India. Chandragupta's son. I don't get it. You must know him, Ashoka. That was that. How do you know all this? I asked, surprised he could read Indian scripts. Xie fell silent for a while. Suddenly, he said, "My wife is Indian," and said no more. I continued viewing the murals. Sure enough, the next parts showed the nine-tailed fox being driven from the palace by a heroic youth with a sword. It seemed to travel to another land. The later images were very familiar, clearly from China's spring and autumn and warring states. One mural even showed a king holding a clear round object and teasing a concubine, the concubine being the nine-tailed fox. The object looked very much like the He Shi Bi jade disc from legend. Please explain again. I don't understand. I had to beg Xie, a great master in India, brought one of the three relic-like treasures to China and asked a famous local jade craftsman to inlay it with the famed He Shi Bi. Therefore, it was said the He Shi Bi had miraculous power, even that whoever obtained it would rule all under heaven. The nine-tailed fox coveted it, but due to war and turmoil, the fox and the jade vanished. Later, one of the three treasures remained in India. One fell into Yuezhi hands. As you know, Zhang Qian brought them back to China. The Indian piece was later brought to Chang'an by Master Xuanzang during his Buddhist exchanges. Another piece was brought to Japan by the monk Jianzhen in 753 under Emperor Xuanzang of Tang as part of Buddhist doctrinal exchange. The piece taken to Japan caused domestic unrest and became a treasure hunted by demons. In 794, less than 10 years after Emperor Kamu founded the capital, the vengeful spirit of Prince Sawara, wrongfully killed, still lingered, forcing the emperor to move the capital to Heian. General Sakanu no Tamramaro erected statues to suppress the prince's spirit, inaugurating the Heian period, a reign of more than 400 years. The nine-tailed fox, chasing the relic, was unexpectedly defeated by mortals and sealed forever in the killing stone. The relic finally vanished. How tragic, I said. But what does this have to do with the incense? What we seek is the last piece that Xuanzang brought back from India. That piece was later returned by Zhang Qian's descendants to the Yuezhi. They hoped to send it back to India, but failed. However, an Indian monk painted these murals here to verify its origin. Finally, that piece was placed in Zhang Qian's tomb that they built. Xie didn't answer my question. I see. The last holy thing is the incense. I realized. Xie nodded. So this was the treasure that stirred 1,000 years of turmoil. Stop thinking. We have no time. Find it fast. The Indian monk who painted these murals also designed the mechanisms here. Direction. I laughed. How could we push it out like that? Wouldn't we cancel each other? But unexpectedly, the mural was actually two hollow stone walls nested. After pushing, two small doors, just wide enough for one person, appeared. Time was short. We had to split up. Whoever found the incense first would tug the rope tied to our ankles to avoid getting lost and to signal quickly. We also carried radios. Xie went left, I went right. If I could choose again, I would never choose right. The path was narrow. If I were heavier, I couldn't pass. After about 20 meters, a short staircase appeared on the right. Each step was uneven, a strange feeling. It was dark, so I didn't pay much attention. As soon as I descended, I saw a strange glow ahead. Indeed, at the far end of the lower room, a skeleton, dressed like a monk, sat with a black box on top. I guessed that was it, and called Xie. But my voice was too faint, perhaps weak signal. I tugged the rope and went to take the box myself. I'm not a fool, so I probed first. Good, no mechanisms. The box was heavy, likely metal. Oddly, there was no lock. Curiosity won. Who wouldn't want to see a treasure that could revive the dead? Hands trembling, I opened the box. I forgot there was a corpse right beside me. As soon as I opened it, an alluring scent washed over me, lifting my spirits. Addictive. I looked inside. A smooth, egg-sized object was set firm in 4 dragon mouths. Inscriptions like Hindi were carved on it. It was certainly the thing. I happily shut the box and tucked it under my coat. I didn't notice something approaching from behind. Just then, the radio buzzed. I cursed, of all times to work. I answered at once, and Xie shouted anxiously, "Got it? If you got it, don't open it. Get out now. Why not?" I said, and suddenly felt a cold draft behind me. I turned instinctively and saw several zombie-like warriors brandishing ancient weapons. Mostly skeletons. They looked as if they had just woken, because I saw powder falling from their faces. I groaned inwardly. Opening the box woke them. No wonder there were no traps. They were the biggest trap. I looked at the dead monk. Strangely, he hadn't risen. Good, one less to deal with. But I was helpless against these inhuman things. The room was cramped. They advanced, weapons in hand. I backed up step by step and yelled into the radio, "No time for nonsense. Help me." No sooner had I finished than I heard Xie curse on the other end. I looked back and saw the stair I had descended had vanished. Then I saw my Nike footprint stamped on a soldier's shoulder. They had been lying there naked all along. No wonder the steps felt strange. But no time to think. A spear sliced the cold air straight at me. I screamed, "There it is." A loud bang sounded as the spear fell. The monsters turned. A second shot shattered a skull into my hands. I threw it away in disgust. "You came just in time. I thought they were your relatives," I said as I tried to break through while they focused on Xie on the platform, and Xie yanked me up. As soon as he pulled me up, he told me to run. "What are you afraid of? Those skeletons can't jump up." I patted dust and looked back. They indeed couldn't jump, but they climbed over each other to rise. They were smarter than I thought. Human strength in crisis is extraordinary. Xie and I ran out of the corridor and slammed the stone door just as the monsters emerged. However they pounded, they couldn't stop us. After all, they weren't Zhang Wuji mastering the great universe shift. We collapsed on the floor, exhausted. I pointed at the door. "What the hell are those?" "Likely guards left during the tomb's construction. Anyone who touches the box wakes them. I told you not to open it." "If you didn't have the box, I wouldn't have saved you," Xie scolded. I knew I was wrong and just grinned. "The incense is truly potent. We must leave at once. If moved from its original position, this place will not stay calm. If we don't leave, we may have no chance." Xie took out a remote and pressed it. We waited to be pulled up. I checked my watch. 5 minutes until 2 hours. But we weren't pulled as planned. Xie pressed several times, but nothing happened. The machine seemed to malfunction. Right then, I felt a scorching wind. Looking back, I saw the 9-tailed fox from the mural flying down. Its flames lit the chamber like daylight. The dark red fur stood on end, making its huge body nearly fill the room, plus the 9 tails. I was almost paralyzed with terror. "Didn't expect it to get this far," Xie shouted angrily. "Didn't you say it was sealed?" I asked. "This isn't its true form, but a spectre formed from its obsession to return to the incense. Its mind can think only one thing." "What's that?" "Kill us and take back the box," Xie said, word by word. "If guns worked on skeletons, They likely wouldn't on this. The fox's spirit drew near and bared sharp teeth, eyes blazing at the bag on my back with the box. What do we do? The machine broke at the worst time. We can only hold out until the auto pull, Z said helplessly. You think we can last 5 minutes? I pointed at the fox, pushing us to the brink. Don't be afraid. It's only a mental entity. I don't think it has much power. Before he finished, the mental entity smashed a steely into tofu. We swallowed. I could feel its heat for the incense on me. My hem had begun to smoke. Don't you know this tomb? Think of something. I tugged Z's clothes. He hurriedly opened his bag and took out a half-moon clear object. Then from his pocket he took a similar one. He clacked them together with a ringing note. Suddenly a transparent round jade disc appeared in his hand. The He Shi Bi. I blurted. Z ignored me, muttered that he hoped it would work, and tossed it toward the fox. Are you crazy? Is that the He Shi Bi? Yes, but it's useless now. I used up the incense within it. Otherwise, I couldn't have awakened. But I hope it can soothe the fox's rage for a while. Indeed, the fox spirit seemed interested. Its anger subsided, its body shrank, and it batted the jade like a cat with a toy. 2 minutes more. Hope it doesn't notice. I watched my watch. Time crawled. 2 minutes felt like 2 years. 10 seconds. Z sighed. We also heard machinery start above. Just as I felt the rope tauten, the fox realized we were leaving and bit Z's leg. I screamed. Strangely, Z didn't react to my scream, but he drew the machete at his waist and chopped off his own leg. No blood flowed. We saw the furious fox below roar, and Z's severed leg was flung aside. You okay? I asked as we rose. Z was indifferent, humming softly. We quickly ascended and finally emerged, but I didn't expect guests waiting. As soon as we came up, I was struck on the head and blacked out. When I woke, the others were still at the rim, but tied up. Z was in no better shape. I looked around. Some faces were familiar. Old Z, the moment I got your letter, I rushed here. Am I not a true brother? A short, middle-aged man with brown glasses sneered at Z. I finally remembered. They were the ones who had witnessed his death with me. Z said he sent invitations, but hadn't he said they were too scared to come? Didn't expect you and Leng Qing to get the incense. Unbelievable. I recognized the tall man in a windbreaker, the biggest black market antique dealer. In his hand was the incense we had struggled to obtain. Give it back, or come take it if you dare. I shouted and was answered with punches to my gut and face. Don't be rash, Z warned, then barked. Isn't it just the incense and He Shi Bi you want? Do you really want to kill a half-dead man like me? Let him go and I'll teach you how to use it. Excellent, said the man who hit me. The bald one was one of the three. It seemed they were all here. Only I had been ignorant of the incense. Back then, your sister-in-law used that defiled treasure to revive you temporarily, so we followed you. You and she are truly the best in this field. You found Zhang Qian's tomb, something unrecorded by the Yuezhi and Indians. Pity she inhaled too much poison saving you and died. Now you're like this, and carrying it is a waste. Why not give it to us to benefit mankind? The short man said loudly. Fine, but how can I prove it to you without a corpse? Z's gentle words startled all three. Before the bald man beside me could speak, I saw the taller one raise his hand. Without a sound, he collapsed beside me, blood seeping from a tiny hole between his brows. Looking back, the tall man's silenced pistol still smoked. The tall man released Xie, or rather held him at gunpoint. If they knew how to use it, Xie and I were dead. I had no idea what Xie was plotting. Xie took the incense. It seemed the three had pried it from the dragon mouths in the box. Now the black, agate-like treasure lay before us. Xie rubbed both sides of it with his hands. Soon we both smelled a faint fragrance and our eyelids drooped. I fell asleep. Wake up. Wake up. I felt someone slapping me hard. I was about to get angry when I realized it was Xie. I looked over and saw the others lying like dead pigs. What happened? I stood. The ropes were off, but my legs were weak and I almost fell. The incense has another effect. Rubbing both faces can knock people out temporarily, Xie explained. Why are you fine? I asked, touching his head. Because it only affects the living, he whispered. I fell silent and asked what to do with them. Throw them down. The fox below is angry, he said coldly, looking terrifying. Throw them. I hesitated. Did you forget they were about to kill us? I couldn't argue, so I obeyed, tossing the three bodies, the bald one included, down. The short one didn't seem dead when he fell, and seemed to land on the tall one. Xie Yi-Da, pull me up. I'll give you all my assets, and save me for all the antiques and paintings I gifted you. The short one screamed, followed by the fox's roar and his shrieks. Soon all was quiet. His last words sounded like cries from hell. Xie Yi-Da, you'll die miserably. Hearing this, Xie stood with my help, about to leave the pit, then turned and smiled. I'm already dead. I helped him back to the study. Everything was ransacked. No need to ask who did it. They had likely caused the machine malfunction too. Hurry, carry me to Lei's room, Xie said anxiously. I carried him to his wife's room. As soon as I entered, a chill ran through me. It turned out Lei's room was a complete ice chamber. Lying on the ice bed was Lei, Xie's wife. She had hardly changed, but her face was empty. She has been dead for years. I've searched all these years for true incense to bring her back. I, already dead, am unworthy of her sacrifice, Xie wept. So he sought the incense, not for himself, but for his wife. Can the incense only save one person? I asked. No, but each use costs 30 years. Li Shimin could live again a few days after death through its power. However, for revival, the body must not be decomposed, so I built this ice vault. Of the 3 pieces, the power in the He Shi Bi has weakened and you used it. The piece taken to Japan is gone. So this is the last piece. Yes, but I'm not sure I can save Cai Yi, he said, lighting the incense and bringing it to his wife's nose. I smelled the strange fragrance again, but this time I did not faint. A miracle occurred. Cai Yi's complexion gradually reddened, and the incense's glow slowly dimmed, finally becoming an ordinary smooth black stone. As Xie watched his wife slowly open her eyes, his eyes, like the incense, lost their brilliance and fell onto Cai Yi. Then, in seconds, he withered like burning kindling. I reached to hold him, but as soon as I touched him, his body turned to ash. I stood numb by Cai Yi's bed, watching the ashes dissipate. He was a fool. Cai Yi woke with a dazed face, yet full of tears. Yes, but he died joyfully. Perhaps you shouldn't have saved him years ago. Those who should die have died, and those who should live still live. I patted Cai Yi and handed her the incense. This is his last relic. No, looking at it brings back too much. I think the Xie family must have trusted you. You dared risk your life with him to get the incense. I give it to you as a memento, Cai Yi said, short of breath from speaking too much so soon. I stared at the incense in my hand. Though it had lost its luster, it still exuded a mysterious allure. I couldn't refuse, and so the treasure everyone coveted fell into my hands in dramatic fashion. My friend smiled impishly and squinted at the incense. What happened to Nai? I contacted her. She has devoted herself to preserving cultural heritage. She said India and China both have millennia of civilization, and the mysterious powers they hold are beyond our imagination. She hopes to explore them further in her life. I looked at the magic stone and suddenly thought, does it still have power now? Yes, my friend said with certainty. It can no longer revive the dead, but it is very useful for treating severe illnesses. Moreover, if you sleep with it, you will see deceased relatives or friends in your dreams. Really? Lend it to me tonight. I reached for the incense, but was refused. Not today. I'm going to sleep. I'll lend it to you tomorrow. He ran out as if fleeing, afraid I would snatch it. Miser. I grumbled, lay down, and looked at my watch. The log showed clearly that today was July 14th. I suddenly remembered his father had died today. May you have a good dream tonight, I said softly, then fell asleep.